Topo Athletic is committed to lifelong health and better movement. Topo builds running shoes for those who get out there every day, regardless of weather, speed, energy, or mood. Their distinctive fit and feel combines instinctive human movement with modern performance and lightweight comfort to help you keep going, keep trying, and keep moving. Discover the Topo difference and step into a run experience unlike any other.
Welcome everybody to the 105th episode of the Fireside Chats. Today's guest is Mike DiGiovanni, and with me I have a co-host. It's not Jason. It's somebody that you've already seen before co-hosting with them a couple of weeks ago. It's Joe Hardin. He was also on the cover of our January-February issue, and he's got a new show coming out under our Everyday Athlete podcast network called Beyond the Finish Line. Excited to have you as a co-host, Joe.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super stoked to be here.
Well, I introduced Mike already. I feel like there's a million ways I could hype this guy up. He just has a lot of relentless energy. Even just the conversation in the green room was our first conversation. And I will honestly say that, like, he's just a fun guy to talk to. And I think this is going to be a great conversation. He's an ultrarunner who recently finished the Leona Divide 100. We were just talking about diets and mindsets, and he has an amazing story of addiction to achievement that I've read a few times, and it's just great to have him on the show. And without further ado, I'm excited to bring Mike on the show. So here we go. We're going to bring you up top here. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Hey Joe.
Hey Mike. Hey Mike.
I'm just excited to, like I said, like just talking in the green room, like it's just fun to dive into mindsets and talking about mindsets. But before we get into the Ultrarunner nitty gritty, you've seen the show before and you probably know what question is coming next. And Jason's not here. He's with us in spirit. But this question would, in normal cases, determine who is going to continue hosting the show. I might just have Joe take one side and I might have myself take my usual side. So are you ready for the question?
I'm ready.
Pineapple on pizza, yay or nay?
Absolutely. I love the mixture of like the kind of the sour sweet, and I am a huge pineapple fan. I will take it just about anyway. And yes, absolutely.
Somewhere out there, Jason is shaking his head. By the way, Joe, that means that I had you as a team nay on pineapple, but I can't remember. Are you pineapple on pizza or not?
I'm team pineapple.
Oh yeah, we are all on the same team here. I love this. Both of you guys had amazing events today, but this weekend. But I really want to dive into and I want to ask you both questions related to mindset. We're all ultra runners here, but I definitely want to start by asking you, Mike. We chatted about this in the green room a little bit, but now that you've had some time to process the journey and had some time to recover, how would you, what would you say about your experience at the Leona Divide 100?
It was epic. I've been chasing the 100-mile distance, as I put in a post. I originally had set a goal that I wanted to run 100 miles when I was 50 years old. So I gave myself kind of a 1-year window from 50, and the idea was to get it before I turned 51. I'll share. I'm actually 53, so it was a few years late. I had some different injuries and some different battles, and we kind of talk about what it takes, right, to get to that distance. And so I put in for Western States, 100-mile, and with my one ticket, I got, and I didn't get picked. Go figure, 50-something thousand tickets and 9,000 people, and my one didn't make it. Kira Henniger, KH Races, just a phenomenal human being. I love her and Jesse to death. And I had reached out to her and I said, hey, can you do me a favor? I need a backup plan, and I'm going to do 100. And if I don't get into Western States, which would have been June, I was like, can you, I don't know how fast it'll sell, but can you kind of tag me a spot in Leona Divide? And if I get into Western States, I'll come volunteer at Leona. So I kind of had this sort of trade-off thing with her, and didn't get into Western States. And so I put in, so I was committed. And, I don't know what you'd say. It's 16,000 feet. It's not, I mean, there's tougher ones and there's easier ones, but, as you've run that Pacific Crest Trail. It's notoriously, there's a lot of non-shaded areas. There's a little bit of shade. It's dry, it's high desert. It was just, I felt I was as prepared as I possibly could have been. It was the first race I've ever done where I had crew. So my good friend Tanner agreed, offered to crew me. I had one pacer locked in, Jake Jackson, who, if anybody knows, I specifically picked him because I wanted somebody who was not going to let me, drag ass, should I say, in the last stages of the race. So I knew he was fast and strong. And it was a little bit of up and down, but it was mostly up. And when I look back on it, I feel like a week and a half out, I am still riding the high of almost quitting at mile 48, having the aid station volunteers, my crew chief Tanner, my first pacer Steph, really kind of do all the right things at the right time to keep me moving. And then just going stronger from there. And to be quite honest, almost feeling like the second half of that race was as strong for me as the first. And finishing, I tell the story, like my favorite part of that whole story, but besides just getting into the club, right, and earning my first buckle, was when I tell people, if I didn't have that little low in that window of time, I had like 6 to 8 miles between, like, say 42 and 48, where I hit the pain cave really, really hard. My first response to my crew chief was, he goes, "What do you need?" I said, "I need to quit." He goes, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I need to quit." And so, obviously I pushed through that. But when we were coming down for the last mile, the sun had come up. We were feeling good. I dropped my pack with my crew at the last aid station, 6.5 miles to go. Jake looked at me and he's like, "Dude, you look strong and you've been pushing really hard. You take the lead for this stretch." He had been kind of taking the front for me the whole pacing time. And he's like, we had a climb to go about 4 miles and then 2 miles down. And I felt so strong and everything was working right. Pushed up the hills, pretty much jogged almost the whole, like, we hiked the real steep stuff, but really jogged most of the ups. When we got to the last 2 miles coming downhill, when it crested and we knew it was kind of coming back, the little out and back at the end there, Jake kind of says to me from right next to me, he goes, "Hey, do you realize if you run this last mile in under 8 minutes, you'll come in at sub 26 hours. And then he goes, "If that's important to you." And it was just like one of those little pokes, like he was poking me a little bit. I think I looked at every split I had for the whole race to that point. 9 minutes and I think 30 seconds was my fastest mile all day of all the 100 miles. We were averaging somewhere in like the high 12s, for the whole race to that point. And in a matter of a second, I thought to myself, I got 1 mile, right? Like how hard can this be to muster up that? I knew I had that time in me. And I just, in a second, I said, okay. And I took off. And I immediately thought to myself, man, if Jake can do math that fast, he's smart. He's a pro. I mean, he's just a seasoned pro. And I thought, all you need to do, Mike, is run. Jake will stay behind you if you're staying under 8 minutes. And if you see him in the corner of your eye, that means you're slowing and you push. And so I put everything I had. I shut down the tire, I shut down the pain, and I just laid it on, and I put on the afterburners. And all Jake said to me is, there's a spot at the bottom. You've been there, right? Like you kind of go, and as you kind of go up around, there's a little community center. You got to take a right turn and go literally maybe 100 or 200 feet to get under the start finish line. And Jake just said, "Hey, remember, right turn once you get off the dirt trail, right turn once you get off the dirt trail." And I just booked it. And there's my daughter came to take photos for me. She and her boyfriend were there. They do photography. And so I hired them to come and do photography for me. And I see them at the bottom. I see all my friends, and I just blast down. I take this hard right turn and I run through the finish line. And I just kept asking, did I make it? Did I make it? And the timer and Kira were like, yeah, you made it. You just ran under the banner. I'm like, no, did I make it in under 26 hours? I finished that last mile in 7 minutes and 40 seconds. And I'm on the high of that because that was proof to me. I had 6 or 7 miles where I was so deep in the pain cave, but at mile 101, I pulled off a 7 minute, 40 second mile. Like if that doesn't tell you like what's up here, that you can pull more out of what you think is in your body, that it's just, I'm still smiling from it. Just loving it.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, I have a question. See, I'm on the 50-mile chasing the 100-mile goal, and I want to know, like, if you could maybe unpack a little bit, like, how did you know when you were ready for the 100-miler?
I think it was, so I've done 300 Ks. And so what was interesting for me is that, we talked about my first 50-miler was in Flagstaff. It was the Sky Peaks 50-miler. And it hit me hard, and the recovery from that was hard. And I almost after that, I remember Eric Sensman is my coach. And I remember having a call with him about a week or two after and thinking, God, I just hated the not running for 2 weeks and I didn't feel good. And so I said, Eric, you know what? I think 50Ks are good. I like the distance. It's nice. It's fun. And let's just keep me tuned up for 50Ks. And I'm just that's it. I got 50 miles. I'm good. And then we can talk about this another time, another phase, but something got me back on the track to do 100K. And I did my first 100K. It went pretty smooth, except I got lost and I did 71 miles instead of 62. And then I did Cuyamaca 100K, which was, we talked about, that was my Western States qualifier. And it just crushed me. That was probably, if there was a race where the wheels came off the bus and like rolled down the road and were like in the woods, it was the Cuyamaca 100K for me. You look like you're nodding because like you look like you've done that one before. That's another one that is tricky. It can seem easy out of the gate. You've got like 8 to 10 miles of rolling flats. You can go out too hot, and it can get hot, and then you can get crushed. And then it's 3 loops, so you got to keep coming back to the start finish, which is also a soul crusher. So after that was an experience that showed me mental fortitude and endurance, because that was the worst race I probably ever had physically, mentally, and the whole thing. But to answer your question, bouncing back from that and doing Black Canyon's 100K this past February. And at the end of last year, what did I do? I did 200Ks, 250 milers, and 350Ks last year. I kind of like probably over raced a little bit. So coming into Black Canyons, I asked my coach if I could just take a break. I was like, I'm worn. My body needs a break. So I showed up at the Black Canyons, not running more than 3 days a week, basically for 2 months. And when I showed up at the Black Canyons, it's a net downhill or whatnot, but I PR'd that in a big way. And I think that was after I finished Black Canyons. I was already signed up, I think, at that point for Leona Divide 100-miler, but I wasn't really sure how it was going to be. For me, it was more like, I'm just going to get this. I'm getting the buckle. But when I finished Black Canyon, something triggered for me, and I realized that like my base had gone to another level, because to be able to only run 3 days a week and show up at Black Canyons, and I think I got like a 13 and change on that one. And once again, another race where I like had a rough moment, but I finished running, like really sprinting across the finish line. That I think going through those progressions of like getting to that 100K, which really isn't, in my opinion, 50 miles to 100K wasn't huge, right? It's only another 12 miles. But it kind of took me to this level where I got this sense of confidence where I was like, man, I got 3 of these. One of them went really crappy and the other 2 went pretty well. That I was like, I can do this. But I still have to be fully honest. I would never admit this, kind of like in public before the race, but like there were plenty of moments of like imposter syndrome and fear leading up to Leona's start line. Am I really prepared? Am I going to do the right thing? Am I going to make the right choices? I was almost telling some of my friends, I'm a little nervous just because I felt like I needed to be a little nervous. I was trying to not be too cocky. And so I think when you make the jump you've done 50s, once you do a couple 100Ks, I think you start to get like this, it's the next logical step. And if you get a good 100K under your belt where you're like, oh, that went pretty well. I mean, it's funny, before we jumped on, I think even before you got on, Joe, we were talking about, do you want perfection? I think Jason was, asking me that. And, no race is perfect, but every race is beautiful. And in terms of and the non-perfect parts of it make it. And so I think when you get to that 100K, it starts to open things up for you a little bit more, and a little bit of confidence comes in with it.
I think the non-perfect part is really the part that I feel like we're chasing when we go out to do these things. If the wheels didn't fall off and roll down the hill, then why would we be doing this?
Yeah.
Same things with ultra, same things with entrepreneurship and business and just life. Like, if you didn't have those challenges and fail forward, like, why would we be doing it? And yeah, and I'm also glad you brought up imposter syndrome, because I think that's something that we've all had separate conversations about. And I have to pose this question to you too, Joe. Like, when you did your backyard 50 miler, did you have thoughts of imposter syndrome when you towed the line?
Oh, constantly. Yeah. There was many times it was like, what am I even doing here? There was, to me, with legit ultra runners, I'm just like, what am I even doing on the same starting line with these people? And then, once I started, getting comfortable, I'm like, hey, I did the work too, so I mean, I overcame it, but it was still a wild ride. I mean, every mile it was like, what am I doing to my, but same thing. I'm kind of riding a high too. It's incredible. I'm still riding waves of joy and pain, and it just stoked my fire to run farther. So that's kind of like what I'm absorbing what you're saying about 100 miles, because that's my next step. I'm just trying to build that confidence and keep moving.
I have to ask you, Mike, about and since we're on the topic of overcoming those feelings, and also moving towards that 100-mile distance, you mentioned something in passing, kind of when you were talking about how something gravitated you back towards doing 100K. So I wanted to talk about that. We talked about it a bit in the green room. I know you mentioned unration as a big reason for it. So tell me a bit about unration.
Yeah, so Unrationed is it's a group of men supporting other men in their journey to become just better partners, better husbands, better fathers, and just better men, better human beings. And I'm a good friend of mine. So Unrationed was started by Tony Albrecht, Evan Chastain, and Josh Aranda. Josh and I, who we've signed up for a nutty race together, but Tony and I connected on LinkedIn, and we kind of had a little bit of this sort of kind of banter back and forth. I had made the decision to kind of just step back and just do 50Ks. And I had been looking, kind of for a group of of just people, I was looking for my tribe. Right. And when Tony and I connected, and he shared with me this Unration that the three of them had started. I think prior to my getting involved with it, they had done one or two other events, and they were trying to really build this into a long-standing, further arching group, grow it and consistently move it forward. And so, I looked at it and I was like, man, I'm looking for a group of people, we'll talk about, I'm sober. And so I was looking for what can I find my people, my tribe. And I was into running at this point. I was really getting into running. And even though I was thinking about scaling back, I still was planning to try to do I think I was thinking I'll do a 50K every other month. And Tony and I connected, and he shared with me this idea about Unrationed, and they were going to do an event in Colorado Springs. They were going to do the Ring the Springs Aravaipa Colorado race. And I was like, oh man, this is perfect, right? Like here's some guys, and they're all also, most of them, it's kind of like an entrepreneurial focus type group too. Most of the guys are that. And so I was like, I was dabbling with this idea of like, maybe I transition out of corporate America and then the running. It was like serendipitously, I was like, oh, like this seems too good to be true. Tony and I got on a call. It was one of those, like you hit it off, like you have a 30-minute conversation. And then I'm like, I'm in, like, I'm going to do this. And so I almost probably didn't even realize what I was getting into. And then they're like, okay, so we're going to launch it. We're going to do a 12-week cohort where we're going to do basically 10 weeks leading up to a race. And then we'll do the race, and then we'll do 2 weeks after, kind of like an integration afterwards, and kind of a, this whole like kind of growth spiritual journey. And then the topic came up, like it's the Ring of Springs had a 30K, a 50K, 50 mile, and 100K. And it was like, all right, well, everybody needs to pick a distance that they haven't done before, was kind of the push. Like kind of to push yourself, like to be unrationed. If you think about that, like to not ration yourself as it relates to your capabilities and how you show up for your family and your friends and your job. And like, just, we talk about like at work, at home, and at play. And so, and I remember looking at that going, and I think if I take it back, I think maybe, was there a 50 miler? I think there might not have been a 50 miler, but I remember looking at it and thinking to myself, like, how can I pick any distance like with this endeavor other than the 100K? And I'd never done one before. And so it was almost kind of serendipitously meeting Tony online, joining that group, and that group was about pushing and stretching yourself. And it was around running. We had some guys who did the 30K, so it wasn't all just ultra running, but it was all like trail running in nature. And I was like, all right, I guess I got to do 100K. So I got on the phone with my coach, and I was like, hey, Eric, I think I'm back in the game, so let's get ready. And in June, I think it was, of last year, I ran my first 100K in Colorado Springs. And so that group has become like so important to me for so many aspects of my life, just my sober journey, my entrepreneurial journey, my running journey. And then after that, we had another one where we went back to Colorado, and as a group, there were 12 of us, and, we committed to doing 480 miles collectively as a group over the course of 48 hours. And, we had different guys at different levels, which was really kind of cool. I mean, we had guys who, had knee issues, or like, everybody's at different places. And so everybody kind of set their own goal of what they thought they could achieve in that 48-hour window. And, we thought, we're going to get there. It's going to be a stretch. And I think collectively, we ended up doing 635 miles between the 12 of us as a group. And then, we're back at it again. And in June, we're going to be all here together doing the Malibu Canyons trail race, Kira KH races down this way, in a variety of different distances. So I was really thankful for those guys from a camaraderie aspect. I'm probably, I'm 6 weeks, as we mentioned earlier, into my entrepreneurial journey. I left corporate America about 6 weeks ago. And I attribute a lot of that to the accountability that those guys put on me. And they're probably a big part of the reason I just ran 100 miles too, just that accountable, being accountable to a group of guys that you respect and you love. And, they're like my family now.
Beautiful. Hey, Mike, I was doing like a little deep dive. Obviously, like we talked about in the green room, we're like LinkedIn pals now. And I saw something, a recurring theme. Tell me a little bit about addiction to achievement and what that's all about.
Yeah. So, it's funny is that like when I, obviously, Jason interviewed me, he wrote the article, and I'd never really thought about how to kind of term like what I've done or where it's been. And when he kind of came up with that title, I was like, hey, do you mind if I borrow that? And so, essentially, I'll get a little vulnerable here, and I'll share with your listeners. And I tell some people. So when I was 10 years old, I was sexually abused as a kid by a family friend, and I never told anybody, like probably till I was 18. I told a friend here or there. And, and at the age of 12, go figure, I start drinking. Like I literally got drunk for the first time at 12. And like, I tell people like, we've all got our demons and our issues that we work through. But like, if you don't tell me there's a connection there between that traumatic event and my beginning journey with alcohol and drugs, then I think you're kind of like, maybe like not here. And so, I from the time I was 12 years old until, let's say, I've been sober for 6.5 years now. So I was 47. So basically for 35 years, take out, I had a 7-year sober stint at one point in time. I've battled drugs and alcohol for my entire life since the time I was 12. And it's always been, kind of white knuckle whenever I have quit. It's just like I cold turkey and, how do I do it? I've tried, I'm 12-step programs, they're not for me. I mean, they help a lot of people and I'm grateful that those resources are out there for so many people. I've read lots of books and different things that have sort of helped me. And this last round, I was sober for 7 years. And when I quit quitting, should I say, that last time, it was worse. And I've talked to people, they tell you, alcoholics and drug addicts, when you fall off the wagon, it's almost always worse each time. It just seems to get worse. And so, I wake up December 28th, 2017. I'm so uncomfortable in my skin because I have so much alcohol in my system, and I'm probably like in massive alcohol poisoning. I'm like lying in the bathtub of my house, just trying to find some comfort in my skin. And my wife looks over at me and she's like, here's the number of a doctor that you're going to go see. And you're either going to go see him at 12:30 or I'm going to go, like, you're going to him or I'm going somewhere else. And so, I used the help of that, that doctor to get sober. And, like knowing how I am about liking to overcome things myself and have my own mindset to challenge myself and to achieve goals, and wanting to really find people that I could be around who did things that I like to do rather than being around people. And this is like no knock on anybody. So anybody's listening, I should say, for me, I almost have a little bit of an uncomfortable situation being around other former alcoholics and addicts if that's the focus of what they are. If they're runners, and there's plenty of ex, addicts in the running world, because I'm hanging out with them because we have something in common that we do enjoy and that we are a part of. We talk about running shoes and lube and whatever, and not like being sober. It kind of overtakes that. And so 1.5 years into this most recent sober journey, it's about 5 years ago, is when I really started running. I never ran. I wasn't a runner in high school. I wasn't a runner in college. And I was just I had been a part of a group called the Phoenix.org, which is a sober active community based out of Denver. And they had some running stuff. And I just remembered, I go, I think that was it seemed to work and it seemed to curb the nervous energy. I have anxiety disorder with depressive tendencies. And so I was like, I'm just going to go start running. And so for 1.5 years, I just ran by myself, just as a way to burn off the nervous energy. And then really it kicked in when I signed up for that 100K. I decided I was going to need to find my tribe. I was like, and that's what I love about the ultra running community. And I remember meeting Kira and Jesse at a 10K that I did on a whim one day, and just saying, hey, can I volunteer? I just started to throw myself into the community because I was like, I want to find my people. And so for me, I get asked often, have you traded one addiction for the other? We've all heard that, right? And I tell people absolutely, and I'll do it again and again and again. And there's no shame in my game for that. And so for me, the achievements become just, what can I get my body to do? I'm a big studier of Stoic philosophy, and I believe that concept of we push the body. And we train the mind and push the body so that the body knows the mind is in charge. And so then you throw on top of that the mindset and the control of being in charge, and you can kind of push through and have anything, you can basically push yourself into doing just about whatever you want. And so the achievement now for me has been let me dabble around. What are the different things I could do? Can I go further? Can I go a different distance? Can I go faster? And I'll keep running as long as I enjoy it, and I seem to enjoy it. Like, and it's just so much fun. And the people, like, I wouldn't be here with you guys right now if it weren't for running, you know? I mean, it's just so, it's like, so the achievement for me is what I have achieved in my life through running by giving up that one addiction to drugs and alcohol and trading it for this running addiction. And like the people I've met, the friends I've made, the experiences that I've had. I mean, I can attribute so much to that it's just, that's it. And I continue to try to find things that I can achieve at and share that achievement and that energy with other people. And, you know, hopefully today or other things, if I can, you know, make somebody smile or make somebody, you know, touch their lives. You know, I really enjoy, you know, helping beginner runners like learn how to do trail running and coaching people on like, you know, downhill techniques and stuff like that. And so I think that's really the achievement part of it for me. It's not any one goal or any one checkered flag. It's really just about, you know, staying sober and being a good example for my tribe, my kids, you know, and my friends.
Yeah, I certainly align with that. I'm a sober runner too. I mean, a lot of us are, but so that's beautiful insight, man. That's you know, likewise, you know, it's a way for me to kind of keep, you know, like doing it one day at a time. You know, ultras are basically the same way. You know, that's sobriety is a ultra, not a sprint. So
yeah,
yes.
one day at a time, one step at a time, right?
Yeah, 1 mile at a time, step at a time.
Absolutely.
I like that a lot. Sobriety is an ultra, not a sprint. I'm 3 years sober myself, and also kind of part of this journey. Jason has been on a sobriety journey as well, and like, it's just, yeah. I mean, I guess to ask if you traded one addiction for another, the answer is yeah, definitely have. I've definitely also had conversations about like instant gratification versus the delayed gratification, and it's interesting how we've all sort of heard the same things in our own ways, and that we can all tie it back to the healing power of running and the sense of community that we get from the people that we now have in this community as well.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to do before we jump into our rapid fire is pivot to something I see behind you on, and that's the double exclamation marks. What does that mean? There's no better way to phrase that question.
Yeah. So all right, don't be haters, but first off, I'm an Android user. If we trade phone numbers and I text to you, my bubbles are going to be, I don't even know what color, but they're not the normal
you're
color.
You're going to be the green bubble guy. Yeah. I went from Android to iPhone, but I was Android for a long time, so you won't get the hate from me.
All right, so
I finally sold out.
you went to iPhone too.
Yeah.
So and it's probably an iPhone too, but when you go into the emojis in Android, there's a double exclamation point and it's red. And so obviously this one's not red, and none of the ones in any of my marketing stuff are red. It's either blue or it's white when it's on the black. But it's so I would use that a lot. And so my friend Tony from Unrationed, we were talking about it, and I was like, it just kind of gravitated toward me. To me, it's sort of like, I had a post up the other day where it was a picture of like one of the photographers taking photos on the trail, and I put this post up, and one of my friends texted or like chimed in, and he's like, you have more than enough energy for more than 5 people. And so to me, it kind of like when I'm talking, it's like just short of like all caps. It's just like I try to put that out. Like, so when you're reading my post, you see the double exclamation point, you feel that energy. And so my friend Tony was like, dude, you can't do it. No. And he's a great marketing guy. Like he's like, absolutely not. So my buddy Evan and I were talking, because Evan helped me build the logo and he built my website for me. And I told him this story about how, you know, my wife used to make fun of me for it. And what she would do is she would always make fun of the double exclamation point. And I'm like the guy who doesn't need coffee, and she does. And we kind of have these battles in the morning. And so she would do it. I'll see if you could watch what she does. She wanted to make fun of me, she would take 2 fingers like this and she would strike down, pull back, and go like that. So she'd be coming out of the room in the morning, didn't want to hear anything from me, and she would look at me and go, "Bow." And I told that story to Evan, that's how my wife would do the double exclamation point. And Evan just fell in love with it. We circled back with Tony, the marketing guru, and he was like, all right, now that I hear that story, it's a done deal. And so it's really about like, you know, I try my best to bring the positive energy as much as I can. There was a short window of time where people like to kind of poo-poo sort of this toxic positivity thing. But, you know, like I said, I go back to like, I am huge fan of like stoicism. I fell upon Ryan Holiday, you know, a few years back, you know, gobbled a few of his books up. Like I read Meditation by Marcus Aurelius like 2 or 3 times. I think everybody should read it. You know, Seneca, like I think that in my opinion is like the foundation, like one of the earliest like foundations of like mindset. And so for me, you know, you're not always going to be optimistic. You're not always going to be positive. But if you have a general core spirit of like, you know, the double exclamation point, you try to attack the day with a smile. You will look more at you know, you'll look at things as instead of problems, they're opportunities, they're challenges, you know, kind of like we were talking about earlier, like it's never going to be perfect. And if you accept that with the mindset of like, how can I go after this in a way that's going to give me the best chance at a positive outcome or a growth outcome, that's what it is for me. And like people see it online, and I think it's like, you know, I hope people take it as sincere because it truly is. And, you know, it's just kind of something that's stuck, and I have to live with it now because it's basically, it's my brand. It's my logo.
I love that so much. I mean, I definitely, Jason had a couple comments there. He said that me changing to blue bubbles changed the course of our business.
Obviously he was iPhone before you were.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Long time. I was a Droid guy for almost a decade before I switched over to iPhone, and he had tried to get anybody, you can ask him, my other friends, like my family. There are so many people who tried to get me to switch to iPhone. It ended up being my girlfriend. It always is. I did it in the name of love. But he also mentioned, I love Mike, but pineapple on pizza, green bubbles, and no coffee. Going to have to reevaluate this friendship.
But hold on. Let me be clear on the coffee, though. People say I don't need coffee, but I love coffee. And if you ever want a coffee recommendation, I will tell you, I have found the best coffee in the world. I am not sponsored by it, but I will plug just because I like to share if you like coffee. There's a coffee company called Kauai Coffee. They grow the coffee in Kauai on the island, and you can order it direct from them. Here's their trick and their secret we learned when we went there on the tour. They sift their beans into 14 different size categories before they roast them. So they're roasted by size. So they don't get any over roasted or under roasted beans, thereby giving the smoothest, cleanest flavor. You don't have any, you ever drink coffee and you're like, oh, it's a little sour or it's a little bitter. And that's usually because the way they roast it, it's never a perfect roast. Well, they size categorize them before they roast it. Kauai Coffee, go. I don't get paid for this. I just do it because I love coffee. And my theory is this: if I have to put anything in the coffee, it's not good enough. Like I like black coffee, just black drip coffee. So, but touche, Jason, on the pineapple and the green bubbles.
Oh man.
Hey Mike, I was stalking your Instagram earlier, and like the first thing that I noticed, other than like the amazing content, was song choices. First, I saw Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I was just like, all right, okay, this dude might be cool. And then I scrolled down a little bit more, and what do I see? Tool. I don't know if it's a question as much as a comment, but I'm just glad there's other Tool fans out there. That's one of my guilty pleasures of metal music. So.
And honestly, I would not even call Tool a guilty pleasure. Like probably my only issue with Tool is sometimes I like it so much I can binge it for a long time and then I got to take a break, you know? But I would say, like, I mean, I don't know that there's anybody musically inclined who wouldn't listen to Tool and just be mesmerized and amazed with the craft that they just like phenomenal musicians. And so yeah, I mean, I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. So I had older sisters. Like my first music was like Grateful Dead and Jeff Beck, just because of the timing and the aging. But then I very quickly got into heavy metal with some friends in school. Black Sabbath. I was kind of more on sort of the Black Sabbath side as opposed to the Zeppelin side, but I do appreciate and respect and like Zeppelin. So kind of that drifted me kind of more into that heavy metal world. Had the Metallica world and phase. I'm one of these. I will say this: their best album was Master of Puppets, in my opinion. I can tolerate And Justice for All, but kind of after that, I can kind of take it or leave it. And then I got into punk rock. I had my punk rock and sort of hardcore phase of things. I had a little stint with rap. There are certain I do have an affinity. I like all music. Like right now, I would even go so far as to say I'm like jamming on Connor Price. I don't know if you've any of you heard him, but really appreciating some of these like private content creator, the guys and gals, men and women who are making their own music and they're putting it out on their own. Really a lot of respect for them, like Prof Gampo. There's like a lot of rap guys are doing that. And but like Chili Peppers are like, I think I saw the Chili Peppers when I was in college in probably 1989. And I think that was like, it seems so long ago, but I think that was like early on in their stardom career. But once again, like when you listen, like I downloaded their playlist for Leona Divide because that was one of the tools in my quiver that I was like, I don't usually run with music anymore, but I was like, for this, I'm bringing everything I can. And I rocked 3 hours worth of Chili Peppers over the time of the course there. And they're just such craftsmen at like, they just write phenomenal songs, and it's just like song after song of just like, so yeah, I love music. I've loved music for a long time. I don't play. I never have. Actually, at college, I was the front guy in a couple bands, but yeah, I'm a huge, and I would say my fallback probably for the most part is always going to be some sort of heavy metal. I'm like Gojira, if you ever heard of them, like French heavy metal band. If you Ohm is like nod, love them. Mastodon.
Have you heard of KMFDM?
Yes. So little old, like kind of that they were like electronic, kind of heavy.
Yeah.
Yes.
German band. Yeah.
Yes. And then, like there'd be times like, look, I'm a big Fugazi fan. I remember seeing them on their first tour when I was in college as well. So I like some of the good, like old school punks. I'm pretty eclectic. And just really enjoy music.
It's just, yeah, it's amazing that there are other like Tool fans out there, and they've reached like different generations, I think, like, because I definitely fell into that industrial new metal kind of movement when I was younger, and like Deftones was there for me, Mudvayne, Linkin Park, like that was all kind of like my childhood music. But yeah, just that almost needs its own segment, like what's in your earbuds, but like
yeah, I think you just came up with there's a potential show right there. What's in your earbuds?
I think Joe had that idea before me, but that's definitely got to be a segment.
Yeah, it has to be sometime soon.
Well, Mike, we really appreciate having you on the show. Before we jump into the rapid fire section, I wanted to open up the floor to you to let people know where they can find you and if they want to follow your journey.
Yeah, so MDG Runner, as you see for my name, if you could see it, I put Mike D MDG Runner. So I'm on Instagram as MDG Runner. That's probably like my second most place that I'm actively there for posting. I'm really aggressive on LinkedIn. That's really my main platform, trying to like bridge the business world with the running world and the mindset world. And you can Google, or just like, type in there, just type for Mike DiGiovanni, and I should show up there. Or you can go to amazingmindsets.co, not .com. I should have not listened to my marketing guy on that one, but amazingmindsets.co. But if you can find me on either LinkedIn, Mike DiGiovanni, or you can find me on MDG Runner on Instagram or Strava. Like, I'm a big avid, like I'm trying to figure out how to like really leverage Strava a little bit more from a social platform, because I love the kind of give and take of the dialogue with other athletes who are trying to achieve certain things. So I tend to be pretty active as it relates to Strava and like cheering people on. So MDG Runner on there as well. And hey, Strava now has a DM feature. So if you only remember one thing in a Strava MDG Runner, just shoot me a DM and I'm happy to connect with you. So
awesome. Appreciate that, Mike.
thank you.
Jason says nothing. There are 2 songs on my phone and both of them are by the Pet Shop Boys.
No pineapple and no music. Is that what he's saying? So quick little side note, and here's what I will tell, and we didn't really get too much into the nutrition thing, but pineapple is in the bromeliad family, and it has a compound in it called bromelain, and if you look around, like a lot of people have joint issues, right? And so like if you have joint issues, you might have cartilage. Everybody knows about like the cartilage supplements, but there's a few supplements out there that actually have bromelain in it, which is kind of in from that family. So pineapple has it. Maybe that's why I have an affinity for pineapple. I do like the taste though, but bromelain is really good if you have ligament tendon issues. When you have those kinds of things, really good to keep healthy, flexible joints. So I throw that out because a lot of people that I meet on the community, when they tell me about stuff like that, I'm like, eat pineapple, and hey, here's a supplement that I found on Amazon, Dr. Terry's, that like might help you out, with your ligaments.
I am not going to lie. That is the most evidence-based reason we've gotten for somebody having pineapple on their pizza. I respect it.
I'm sold.
It's good. It's good for your joints. It's good for your joints.
That's going to be my line for the next 50 episodes. I'm going to drive Jason nuts with it. It's good for your joints, man.
Yep.
All right, man. Are you ready for the rapid fire section? When Jason's not here, I go ham on ChatGPT and I come up with the most insane questions. So,
oh boy.
There's some good this or that in here. So are you ready for it?
I am ready. Let's go, ChatGPT.
All right. If you were oh man. Okay. So if you had a cooking show, would it be called Broil Upon a Time or Once Upon a Fritter?
Broil Upon a Time.
Okay. If you were a food superhero, would you be the ingestible bulk or Captain Caper Crunch?
Well, I'd be Captain Caper Crunch for sure, man. I could just see that like now.
Ice cream flavor. If you only had to choose between these 2 and you don't get any other choices, bacon brickle or sweet corn swirl?
Sweet corn swirl. That actually doesn't sound that horrible.
Sweet corn swirl doesn't. And keep in mind, like some of these questions, I am literally reading them for the second time or the first time over, so it's really killing me right now too. If you had to choose one food and you had no of these 2 and you had no other choice, meatloaf milkshakes or deviled eggnog?
Oh my god.
And this one, considering you just went to carnivore, might be pretty applicable.
Yeah, well, at least, I mean, they're both got, I honestly think, and just, I'm going to have to go with the what was it? Deviled eggnog? Is that what it was, right? Deviled eggnog or something?
Deviled eggnog.
Deviled eggnog? I don't know. For some reason, that sounds a little bit better than meatloaf milkshake. That's horrible. Those are both disgusting.
That sounds terrifying. I think I've had nightmares about that before.
I can see it in the blender right now. Like, this is disgusting.
All right, I'll switch to a little less of an unhinged question here. Food-themed daytime TV show, The Fry Life or The Grill Whisperer?
The Grill Whisperer. What
about you, Joe?
I'd go The Grill Whisperer too.
That is a pretty good one. If you were a sandwich artist, what would your name be? The Earl of Bunwich or the Croton Count?
I'd be the Earl of Bunwich for sure.
What about you, Joe? What would you be, Joe?
I'd be the Earl of Bunwich too.
Man, no love for the Croton Count. Drive-through Drive-through server curse. I don't know what that means. Condiment cologne. Eau de mustard or ketchup catade?
Oh, Eau de mustard. Like, I actually love mustard.
I'd go ketchup, I think.
All right. All right, couple more here. If you were a butcher, what would your catchphrase be? Ribeye friend or I ham what I am?
I ham what I am. Definitely, just because it's funny. I prefer the ribeye over the ham, but like that one sounds better.
Oh my gosh. So these are pun. Okay, what would be your pun autobiography title if it was food related? Deal with it or it's all gravy, baby?
It's all gravy, baby.
I feel like that's applicable. What about you, Joe?
It's all gravy, baby. I love
yes,
that.
it is.
Love it. Here's okay, two more here, and these are not okay, new pie flavor. Shingleberry or Garumba rhubarb?
I just shingleberry sounds horrible, but it just rolls off the tongue like really well. So that's what I'm going with.
Oh my gosh. All right. This one's not food related, but I find this one pretty hilarious, and I am curious to see what the answers are. If you had a lifetime supply of one of these two items, which one would you pick? Rainbow suspenders or googly-eyed glasses?
I think I'd rock the rainbow suspenders pretty damn well, so that's what I'm going for. And I can't give up my blue Roca specs here. So
Love that. What about you, Joe?
I'm going to go googly eyes. I think that'd be hilarious to be able to wear that every single day. Nobody would take you seriously. That'd be even better.
Imagine if you had to live the rest of your life just like you're able to see through it, but like every glasses that you wear, you just have like resting googly eyes.
resting googly eyes.
You finish you have a serious moment at a race, googly eyes. You have a sad googly eyes. If you at your birthday, googly eyes.
Nice.
Oh man, can you imagine those before and after photos in a 200? Googly eyes. Oh man, just getting unhinged here. But Mike, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on the show. This has been a fun conversation, and that GPT, those GPT questions are unhinged. We might have to do more of that.
That's a good way to come up with some spontaneous things. It's just it's amazing what ChatGPT has done to this world. And to think 5 years ago we really hadn't even heard of it, and now it's driving the rapid fire food fight question.
Hey, I am what I am, man.
Good one.
That said the guy who doesn't eat meat, but appreciate having you on the show, Mike. I hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for talking, Mike. It was awesome to get to know you more.
Yeah, you as well. Look forward to seeing you guys out there.
Heck yeah. See you guys out on the trail.